Okay. What's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back for some Hanging with Mangg, where we are playing some Enshrouded. I've been playing this here and there with some friends, and it's pretty good. I mean, if you like, survival games and all that entails, and you like, say, I think if you like Valheim, you'll like this. It's pretty similar to Valheim in a lot of ways, but I think it's more conventional, I suppose, than Valheim in like kind of the game design. I think the combat is a bit better than Valheim. There's like skill trees, so it's a bit more of like a group RPG experience with survival elements. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's not perfect. I wish that the map was like a little bit more busy. There's a lot of just like empty space, but it's not bad. And you do get a glider, which is pretty fun. So yeah, it's not bad. We got Borderlands 4 coming out this week though, so I don't know if we're gonna switch or not. We'll see certainly how reviews look for that game. I'm not expecting anything good. No expectations, no disappointments, and all that. But if it's good, it's good. Yeah, so that's what's going on with that. This week on this channel, we had Dominions. And I can tell that I'm kind of, sort of flooding the ether, so to speak. You know, I'm flooding the airwaves with Dominions content. Viewership on everything is just kind of plummeting. Because people are probably like, oh my god, he just uploads so much. Why does he upload so much? Stop uploading. And it's, you know, it's similar but different if I were like a streamer and I just stream for 8 hours every day. It's like, yeah, that's a lot more content, but it's condensed into one little video, one little VOD. I'm uploading, 2 lengthy videos every single day, and it just kind of fills up the feed. But at the same time, what am I gonna do, you know? I have a lot of frickin' videos, and I keep recording more videos. Because we also have Silk Song. Now that one, of course, viewership's going to be low because a lot of people are also playing it themselves. Like, I'm certainly not watching anyone play Silk Song. I saw, like GG Murrin was streaming Silk Song, but I didn't really want to watch because I don't want to be spoiled. So I understand, but nevertheless, it's a game that I wanted to record, and I'm going to upload it right now. I guess I could hold off, but some people might be interested in watching it and not playing it. And then there's Dark Deity 2, of course. Which will just keep going. It's not too long. Fret not. We're not interested in Dark Deity 2. It was a good game, though. Yeah, so we have quite a lot happening then between Dominions and Silksong, and you know, like I always say, I don't really care one way or the other if people watch or don't watch. Like, it would not be good for me if I did actually care if people watch these videos, is what I'm saying. So it's just like, I like recording, I like uploading, I like comments. I like, you know, I like when people watch, and I like when people comment and discuss and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not depending on any of that. So yeah, I even though Silksong came out, I still can't stop playing Dominion and recording Dominions. So I've sort of been alternating to give my brain a break between each game. So I've been alternating between Dominions and Silksong in my recordings. It's just too good, man. Silksong, if you are curious, is quite good. It's quite good. It's very beautiful. I've certainly been enjoying it. I like a good number of sort of the changes and additions. You know, some of the boss battles, very, very frenetic, very exciting, very intense stuff. But there have been a lot of complaints about the difficulty of this game in comparison to Hollow Knight, which is already considered to be a pretty difficult game. And I would say, yeah, by and large, it is definitely a more difficult game. So, take that as you will. I don't think there's really any argument that it's more difficult. The argument, I suppose, is that a problem? And that's a personal question. Well, there's so yeah, those are the two big complaints, is that it's kind of too difficult for some people, which is, you know, whatever. It's a lot of the difficulty comes from the fact that a lot of bosses specifically do 2 damage on a hit rather than 1, which is something that was pretty rare in Hollow Knight, but it's pretty common in Silksong. So Silksong sort of feels like a DLC that you would play after you beat Hollow Knight, you know, and you're like, okay, I got it now. Give me the end game. So that's one thing. The other big complaint I've seen over and over now is the runbacks. And to be clear, I mean, Hollow Knight has plenty of runbacks, but Hollow Knight was years ago. And so now there's a brand new game, 2025, and they don't care, you know, people aren't going to care that, oh, this was in development for 7 years. Like, it doesn't matter. People nowadays playing a game like this in 2025 expect there to be not really any runbacks between bosses, you know, after a boss death. Because we're kind of over that as gamers. And I can definitely understand that. And there are some runbacks in the game that are a little... Nothing that I have been like, I'm done with this game, I'm sick of it. Like, that hasn't happened. But there's some that's just like, yeah, this is a little egregious. This could have been made a little better. But, like I said, I'm still really enjoying it. So that's what's happening on this channel. We didn't do Two Brothers Play last night because Lego forgot to tell me that he was out of town this weekend. He entirely forgot. And if you go back to Wednesday's stream at the end of it, I mean, you won't do this, but if you did, I'm pretty certain he says that we're going to, you know, pick this up again on Saturday. So, yeah, I was surprised when my mom told me that, yeah, he's out of town. So we will pick it up on Wednesday then. Oh, don't. God damn it. Alright, I forgot even what I was going to do out here. I wanted to, I just wanted to set up a couple more, fast travel points. So, that's that. Right, over on the Exploring series, we had Murphy Law Part 2. I have not looked at the view count for that. I uploaded it and I never looked once because I was like, I know it's going to be abysmal and it's going to make me kind of sad. Because Part 1 did not do that well. So, I enjoyed making it. I'm glad it's out there, but that's it. That's the end of my involvement. Despite that, you know, I'm still excited and hopeful for more Murphy Law stuff in the future, even though it doesn't do well viewership-wise. I hope other authors continue to expand his lore. Then this week, I started working on a... Seems like a good spot. Okay. Started working on a new DJ Cactus article. I wonder if that's too close, and that was kind of pointless. Considering how easy it is to just fly here. Maybe that was too close. I should have made it closer to here. Can I pick this up? New DJ Cactus article, SCP-7341. It's basically another sort of pattern screamer, but this time in Iceland, which I will note is where DJ Cactus recently moved to. So, certainly seems a bit topical for him. And I was working on it, was planning on it coming out on Monday and being finished this week. And then it was Wednesday night, and I ended up getting like 2 hours of sleep that night. So just fried. And I was sitting there trying to work on the script, and I just couldn't, like, the typos I was making, I just couldn't even think. I was just fried, man. And then Silk Song came out, and it was like, whatever brain cells I have right now, I want to put towards Silk Song. So, yeah, I was just like, fuck it. You know, I rarely take a week off. This is one of them. So I made a post on Patreon, a post on YouTube. And I just figured, well, you know, this is why we have backup videos. This is why I don't immediately release the all parts videos so that I can have something in my back pocket. Okay. Why did I keep... I really should put it here, but fine, it's there. That's the spot. I'm done with it. So yeah, tomorrow there will be the all parts combined video for Black Adytum. It is 7.5 hours long. It's a big boy. So yeah, I think plenty of people will appreciate that. I'm sure plenty of people have been waiting. I've been waiting to listen or watch that for the all parts video. It's normally something that I would wait till January. But again, it's just like, it's just there. In case of emergency, I can upload that instead. So yeah, that's what's happening. And then the pattern streamer thing will be next week. That's kind of it, except for some RPG talk. So yeah, Draw Steel, our continued playthrough of an intermission to Storm King's Thunder, featuring the Delian Tomb starter adventure for Draw Steel. They had finished up the first part of the adventure, where you go into the Delian Tomb to rescue this girl from some goblins. So all was well. They were local heroes, and the abbot of the town dumped on them a bunch of side quests that are available. And they decided to... Well, actually, that was sort of last time, because they got involved with the werewolf. I don't think this thing even has a health bar. I don't know what this thing is or how to kill it, but it's there. Very angry sounding. I was supposed to just be here to be placing those flame altars, and now I'm doing all the adventuring. Yeah, like maybe here. I should set one. So they started investigating this werewolf. They talked to this guy that got bitten by what is obviously a werewolf, although he doesn't know that. He thought it was just a wolf. They didn't tell him that it's a werewolf, nor did they tell him that he was going to turn into one. I think they'll likely forget about it, so it's actually a bit of a ticking time bomb for them. There is a timer on if they spend a certain number of respites, long rests basically, before they find a cure for him or deal with it, he'll turn into a werewolf, and there'll be this sort of nighttime encounter where he eats some civilians and they have to fight him. That's on them. Now again, a good DM, quotation mark, quotation mark, quotation mark, on what a good DM is, but a nice DM would probably at the start of next session remind them, hey, you know, there's that guy that your characters know was bit by a werewolf, and your characters know he'll turn into a werewolf. Do you want to address that at all? I'm not really that nice of a DM, though, because it's just against the DM code. And then they started investigating this this grain theft out of the granary. I should find a way to get the hell out of here, huh? And they discovered that someone had cut through a hole in the floor of the granary and snuck in, and they left behind a penknife with the initial P on it. And they pretty quickly, even they put this together, that it must belong to the woodcutter's son, Percival. Oh god, I thought this was out of it. This is not out of it. We effed in the A. Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I was close. So, right, so they go over to the woodcutter. And before they even really have a chance to, like, stand there and accuse his son of stealing grain, he immediately is like, oh, adventurers, oh. And he starts going into his sort of side quests, you know, spiel about how, you know, bandits in the woods, and, oh, please, I hope you're here to help with the bandits. I can't cut any wood, and, oh, we're running out of money, and, you know, they obviously were like, oh, shit, you know, he's stealing food because they're starving, and they don't have any money, and blah, blah, blah. And that is true. I mean, that's exactly what's happening, but it's a bit of a moral dilemma, and Lego was sort of at the forefront of this moral dilemma. And he's like, you know, as an aside, he's like, well, you know, I'm a paladin, and I have to do good, and he's you know, he's stealing to feed his family, and I'm like, you know, and it's like, okay, but so you would say your character is not lawful. He was a bit, I think, sort of stunned and perplexed at what I was saying. I think he resolved in the end that he was going to, you know, tolerate this because it's for, you know, the greater good. But he was going to, once this is all over, be, you know, tell the kid, like, hey, you know, you did what you had to. And that's okay in the eyes of the gods. But you have, you know, you have to repay. You gotta repay him. It's like, okay, I mean, I suppose It's fair. Um, you know, there's different types of paladins. There's different types of good characters. And I've certainly played characters like Ovum, the Half-Orc Avenger. That's just like Judge Dredd, you know, you broke the law. The law is the law for a reason and must be upheld. Otherwise, we have anarchy. And I like playing characters like that because it's very simple. You know, there's no gray. It's all black and white. You don't really have to think about it too much because it's just like, well, that's the law. We all know the law. You broke the law. End of story. But those types of characters can brush up against your buddies quite a bit in the party. Especially if you have like a thief or a rogue or something, you know, there's possibly conflict. Then that sort of behavior really encourages your rogue to do things surreptitiously, and that takes group time away, you know, because then it's like, okay, well, the rogue, he wants to do this thing, but he has to do it privately, you know, on his own, because otherwise the paladin is going to make a big stink about it and throw him in jail or something, who knows what. So then he has to be like, okay, when everyone else goes to sleep, I get up and I sneak out of the inn. It's like, oh, great, you know, here now we have to sit here for 20 minutes as the rogue does his little playtime. But the rogue player picked the rogue generally because they want to do rogue fucking things, you know? And sure, there's that code, you know, the general kind of unwritten thing of groups stick together just for the sake of the group's entertainment value. We're all kind of a party. We do party-based things, so we don't have to do this. But you're sort of tying the rogue's hands a little bit in that situation. And I understand. I've been on both sides, I guess. I've definitely been the type to sort of split the party. Oh, look how fucking close I was. Damn it. I've definitely been the type to go off on my own and do my own shenanigans. You know, when I played Frederick Zoller, the doppelganger vampire, I did a lot of stuff on my own that was very ne'er-do-well kind of stuff. Because I was in a party with, you know, a paladin and stuff, and it was just like, well, I'm not gonna just sit down with the group and say like, okay, well, I'm gonna go break into this person's home and drink their blood and stuff. Is that cool? Like, no, I mean, the paladin's not gonna be cool with that. But I've been, you know, on the other side. I've played as Ovum, and I've been all about the law. And you don't break the law, I'll fucking kill you. For the most part. And I have killed fellow player characters. Although they were not very good players. That's not really a good justification, but they sort of started it. I mean, maybe I created the situation and the atmosphere, but they definitely picked the fight. Hard to say. I'm sure I'm not blameless. So yeah, I mean, you know, this is not a group that delves into those kind of quandaries and concepts and things like that. And they don't really have any individual personalities. As we've gone over, they're basically a big group think tank. They always do things as a group. They discuss things as a group. They are sort of in perfect harmony as a group, which is good, I suppose, except they cut out any sort of role-playing aspect from the role-playing game. But Lego is trying, you know, he is trying to have a character. His only problem is that he always plays the same character. He always plays a paladin. He always plays sort of a, you know, this sort of lawful good paladin. Jesus. And, he's not really... I mean, pretty much none of them really like to go outside of their comfort zone too much. At all. Like, my mom pretty much always plays a fighter. And she tries to base her fighter on, like, different characters that she likes from shows and stuff. But then they're always just, like... They're always this... It's just always my mom playing a fighter, you know? So... They're never... They're all interchangeable. And then... My nephew pretty much always plays a mage. And he pretty much always plays, like, an evil mage. He can't really do much evil stuff, because, like I said, it's a group think tank, so he can't really break away too much. But he does often suggest doing the most evil stuff. And if he can get any spells that's, like, devil summoning, or, you know, a lot of the, like, you take any sort of forbidden, or any of the dark magic schools from, like, Shadow of the Demon Lord, that's all stuff that he loves. It concerns us sometimes that he can't really embrace playing a hero at all. But, you know, he just goes with the group anyways, so it's like, okay. I mean, on the one hand, that's good. Like, you know, you shouldn't make a character that goes away from the rest of the group and does his own thing and has his own evil agenda and stuff. But at the same time, it's like there's just no real personality there then. My aunt, she tends to play just like sort of any character that sits in the back with a bow. She doesn't like to do melee because she finds it scary, to be upfront. And she sort of plays stealth characters, but she doesn't like to sneak forward on her own either, because that's also scary. So she just likes to sit back in the back with a crossbow or something and shoot. Whether that's a ranger, a fighter, a rogue, whatever. That she likes that. And then the personality, again, is basically always the same, where there's just no role-playing. It's all just, like, mechanical decisions, you know? Fucking hell! It's all mechanical decisions. What game am I playing? What am I trying to do? Well, I'm playing Enshrouded. I'm trying to, get my corpse back, I guess. Well, talking about D&D. That's it. I had a plan when I started the stream, but that fell by the wayside very quickly when I died. So anyways, they agreed. They didn't do anything with the kid. They didn't even confront him about the fact that he was stealing grain, because they all kind of understood that he was stealing for his family. What's the strongest character I've made in D&D? Well, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons in about... God, when was the last time? I'll just spitball and say 6 years. And I think 4th edition was the last one I played. I use D&D just as a general shorthand. I'm talking about Draw Steel. But yeah, so... but I started RPGs with 4th edition D&D. And then we played 5th edition briefly when it came out, but weren't really crazy about it. The strongest character I had in 4th edition, and strongest is really like, how do you define that exactly? Like the most amount of damage you can do in one turn, or you know, the like the most amount of damage you can do across 5 turns, the most survivability, the most utility. I mean, it's really, I would say for me personally, the strongest character I ever had was my 4th edition vampire changeling. I'm a very non-combat player. So combat-wise, it was, like, fine. I mean, it wasn't really anything exceptional. It was just fine. It got the job done if we did get into a fight. But out of combat, I was fucking unstoppable. Being able to shapeshift, change form into, like, anybody I saw, just gets you into so many places. So many situations. And then being a vampire, I had a lot of like telekinetic stuff and like sort of hypnosis stuff. Like I was, and I built it. I'm pretty sure at level like 1 or something, I had like plus 20 to bluff. It was ludicrous. Like I could bluff anything even if I rolled like a 2. And it was so ridiculous that after that campaign, my DM had to ban the specific combination of vampire and changeling. I could play one or the other, but I couldn't have a changeling vampire ever again. So I think if your DM bans it for the rest of life, that's probably a good indicator of being very strong. It wasn't really the best, like, team player, though, because it was just, like, there was just so much I could just do solo. But the problem is I tend to always gravitate and find those sort of combinations and those characters, regardless of RPG. We did a 40k game with Stars Without Number. And it was in a 40k setting. And I played a psyker, basically. And I had a teleport. And it was like it was a good teleport ability. And I remember, like, basically the last session we did of that was just like, yeah, I think we're done here. We had this mission to go to this, I don't even know, I think it was just, it wasn't even a mission. It was definitely not the mission. But I was like, dude, we can fucking do this. Just watch. We came across this, like, chaos outpost or something like that. I think we were only supposed to do recon or something like that on it. That might have been the mission, but I was like, nah, we got this. Because there were multiple, like, towers around the outpost. And they were generating, like, a chaos, like a warp storm or something like that was preventing the fleet from arriving on the planet. Something like that, you know. I don't remember. This was years ago now. But it was something like that. I remember there being multiple towers, and they were the cause of something, and if they were destroyed, it would be a lot better. But I remember that was not the mission, but I felt that we could do it. And so we had a bunch of bombs, like remote detonation bombs. And so I very quickly just teleported myself onto each of the towers, dropped some bombs, teleported to the next one, dropped some bombs, teleported off, and detonated all of them. And that was it. That was the whole thing. And all the towers blew. You know, the fleet came down, wiped out the base, and that was it. And that's all good and all heroic. And it's like, yeah, then why wouldn't you do that? It seems like it works well. And it's like, yeah, it does. Except that it doesn't involve the other people at the table at all. You know? And that's something I've consistently struggled with as a player. Like, I build characters that are extremely utilitarian, you know. They're all based around out of combat utility because I don't like combat that much. So every problem I can solve without getting into combat makes me happy. And that's all well and good. But then, like, my characters end up being so useful for out of combat situations, whereas everyone else is like building for combat and things like, you know, they're building normal characters. And then I'm like, okay, well, if we just do this and do this and do this, you know, we can bypass this whole thing. And then I do it, you know, and we bypass combat, and then the rest of the group is just sitting there like, well, that's cool, I guess, you know? So it's something I really struggled with. We haven't played in a while. We're going to start playing again in November, and I'm very excited, but back when we used to play, it was something I struggled with of like, okay, I can come up with this plan. This will work. You know, we can do this, and we'll bypass this, or we'll accomplish this, and all I have to do is this, this, this. That's great. But I really need to incorporate the others into this plan somehow. Deliberately. Like, even if it's a subpar option or whatever, just find a way to incorporate them. We played Godbound once. Which is a game where essentially you play as demigods. Like, you start the game as demigods. And you're dealing with very high-end... It's basically like starting D&D at level 20. You know. And I played a... It was like our first campaign of it, you know. I had run it as a one-shot. I knew all the rules. I think we did like a read-through of it on this channel of the rulebook. So it was our first campaign. I was building my character, and I was like, well, I'm going to look through all these options. I think this is our best bet. Because, again, I prioritize non-combat stuff. So, like, you know, my cousin, he loves D&D combat. You know, that's what he's all about. He'll always build characters for combat. Because he's more of a board gamer, so he likes that. I don't like that. So he built like a demigod of war, basically. He built sort of like a Kratos kind of figure. Very much not non-combat utilitarian stuff. I went with a god of time and luck. So I could manipulate probabilities and I could manipulate time, which are by far the most powerful options. And if anyone ever asks you if you could have any superpower, the only correct answer is probability control. And so, yeah, I had... I'm tempted to pause this and look up Godbound real quick, just to go into exactly what I had. The luck was definitely a bigger aspect than time. Let's see. Do I have... Do I have a PDF of Godbound on here? I wouldn't be surprised. Hmm. Maybe I don't. No, I must not. Maybe they have a... No, I'd have to, like... No, I don't know. Okay. Well, basically, I had the ability to manipulate any sort of probability on a large scale. So if anything was, like, potentially possible, I could manipulate it so that it would happen. And that is extremely powerful. And it didn't take long for me to kind of exploit that to its maximum effectiveness. I think at one point we were out in the desert or something, and we were about to be attacked by like an entire army of like just thousands and thousands of soldiers. And it's like, okay. So I manipulated the probabilities that like multiple meteors, like a meteor storm would occur right here, localized, entirely within this area, entirely on the enemy army. And it's like, it's possible, so yeah. That didn't get all of them, though. So then it's like, well, there is a possibility, of course, in this desert that a sinkhole would just appear. And so it did. There were mechanics to these things. Like, you know, this wasn't like a free, unlimited sort of thing I could just spam. But I could use it. And the actual text of the ability was pretty free form. It was pretty much just, you know, you can make something happen if it's possible to happen. But yeah, we had to stop that campaign because my DM just really couldn't figure out any sort of challenge for us. I had a bunch of other stuff too that was just like kind of ridiculously powerful. And it especially got pretty bad because I think part of it was just the campaign that he kind of set up for it. It basically split up the entire party from like nearly the start, basically. We just went on. We each had like our different objectives and stuff. I think he tried to do it to kind of cater to our different sort of tastes. Because I mean, altogether, I think we did spend a decent amount of time together. But yeah, I remember a good chunk we were separate. But like, yeah, so like my cousin playing the demigod of war. He wants to get into big fights and scurry. Like he wanted to fight that army, you know, and just wade into it like Dynasty Warriors or something, you know. But for me, it's just like, why, you know, why bother? Just, you know, done. You know, that's how I approach stuff. I don't want to fight this shit because there are rules for combat and all that stuff, you know, in Godbound. But it's like, why bother? The army's done. So yeah, we kind of clashed, I think, and that's probably a decent part of why my cousin no longer plays RPGs and just prefers board games and playing Gloomhaven and stuff. Whereas for me, it's like nothing, absolutely nothing can match what RPGs can provide. Anyways, where was I? I was talking about Draw Steel, Delian Tomb, Werewolf. Right, yeah. So they didn't confront the kid about it. They didn't really mention it. And they're like, okay, we'll go deal with the bandits. So they headed out into the forest to go find the bandits. And they eventually do. There's a little lake out in the woods, and there's an island in the middle of the lake, and there's a palisade. There's a little fort out on the island. And they spot a little raft there, and they're like, "Oh, someone must be out here. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait in ambush till nighttime." And there's no ambush. I mean, nighttime comes, and again, I much prefer just sort of the more free-form nature of like an OSR game or just a homebrew campaign where I would be a bit more flexible, but here there's no ambush scripted. And I'm actually really concerned in the future about when my buddy starts to DM Draw Steel in a homebrew campaign, because we're going to be very free-form, you know, like I just don't know how he can like actually map out and plan encounters like a week ahead of time with the way that I play, you know. If I had to guess, I'd say we're gonna fall back to just like 4th edition D&D stuff, where we're, you know, if we get into a fight, he's gonna pull out the battle mat, we're gonna pull out some miniatures, and he'll just throw some monsters onto the thing, and we'll just go. Which is probably livable. It's probably fine. It's not going to be perfectly balanced almost ever. But hopefully we don't get into that many combat. Otherwise, you know, that means that I failed. But yeah, so there was no ambush. At nighttime, they're like, okay, we get on the raft then, and we're going to sail out there. Except that they didn't check the raft at all. And again, a nicer DM would have maybe said, oh, you know, your characters feel like they should probably check this raft to see if it's seaworthy. Because they, as players, will just never think of that. But they didn't think of that. They didn't check. I didn't say anything. So, of course, the raft is kind of rigged to fall apart upon any sort of light collision. And it's also coated in, like an accelerant. So it'll just quickly go up in flames if any flames hit it. It seems like a surprisingly intelligent move by the bandits, I gotta say. LEGO always criticizes that I play the monsters as if they were like, 200 IQ in combat, you know, like where I'm like, they're using knockbacks, they're using like everything to their advantage. And sometimes I agree with them, like I really shouldn't be playing like skeletons that way or something, you know, like they're fairly mindless. But yeah, bandits, I guess. I mean, I didn't write this. I didn't script this. This is just part of the module. That they're smart. They set this little raft trap. And so of course they sail out there, and this is all in the module if they didn't check and everything, and they bump into like this sharpened log in the water, and a couple of them get tossed out into the water off the raft, where they bump into a bunch of clawfish that are in the water. And a lookout on the shore wakes up, and he grabs an arrow and lights it on fire to shoot at the raft, and the whole thing goes up in flames. But it's a pretty easy fight there for them, so it's nothing crazy. And they silence the lookout, and they actually sneak into the fort. They discuss very heavily just kicking in the front door and barging in, because I was sort of talking with my mom about how, you know, some groups are just like door kickers. You know, some groups don't think about clever plans or any bullshit like that. They literally are just like, we're here to fucking fight. We're going to kick in the door and get into a fucking fight. I don't normally play like that, but I have played like that. Like, Ovum was very much a door kicker character. That's what he did. He would not sneak in here. He would kill. All he needs is kill. Oh my god. And so she was, you know, figured that you know, this group should be more door kickers. because they can't think of any clever plans. So they should just not think and not waste time and kick indoors and fight. Because this... She thought that I meant that this game was designed for door kickers. And I had to clarify that I never said that. It certainly can accommodate that style. The game sort of intends for you to get into combat, but combat with a tactical advantage and one with a disadvantage is certainly two different things. Door kicking can give you an advantage, you know, usually the element of sort of sudden shock and awe, but it can also be pretty disadvantageous. So they really thought about kicking in the door, but at the last moment, they're like, they put it to a vote and everything, and they ended up sneaking over the wall. In the end, I don't think it really made much of a difference in this case, but yeah, they snuck in and they got into the fight. And it was a big fight with a lot of bandits that were inside the fort. It was a big brawl, and they just don't really get the hang too well of tactical positioning and stuff. They almost never flank, but that's mostly because... Well, they only have 2 melee characters, so flanks just aren't going to happen. And they do have a shadow, like a rogue, but it's a ranged shadow, so she doesn't concern herself with flanking. She mostly just teleports around to try to get, like, hiding and maybe a height advantage. But yeah, so the 2 squishy characters, the Shadow and the Elementalist, just can't seem to grasp good tactical positioning throughout a fight. And, you know, I don't really pick on anybody. I typically just have enemies target whoever is closest. But it's so often the case that they just end up being the closest ones, despite being squishy mages and range characters. So during that fight, I believe my nephew died. As in actually died. And like I've said before, we don't have death rule. You only die if you want to die. But if you do technically die, you suffer -1 to 1 attribute permanently. So he technically died, but, you know, he got back up after the fight was over. And then they decided they came across 2 more doors in the fort, so they kicked open one of them, which leads to the main boss battle. And so they get into this big boss battle with this bandit leader woman, who's a pretty tough customer. And alongside this sort of monk, basically, this female monk. So they quickly, like, kind of focused fired the monk, which was good. I mean, she was the weaker one and, you know, plenty dangerous, so it made sense to sort of focus fire. So that wasn't too bad. And it was unfortunate. I don't think it was really a bad play on my aunt's part. She was all the way in the back as the range character, and that was fine. But then the leader, the bandit chief, had this special villain action that allowed her to shift 10 squares, and throughout her shift, she could make 4 different attacks. So she basically shifted across the map and hit everybody once with her, like, big normal attacks. And so then she ended up by the by the Shadow after hitting him for quite a bit. And then it ended up being her turn before the Shadow really moved. And I had to take her turn. There was no other turn to take. The monk had died. So it was just like, you know, she was equidistant from 2 characters. She had last hit the Shadow. So it was just like, I feel like she would just target the Shadow again, you know? Like, I don't know. Sorry. So I targeted the Shadow and, yeah, just laid into her with, like, big attack, and then I knocked her back into the wall and just, like, slammed her through the wall, and, yeah, I killed her again. So I think this was her third death, actually. Yeah, so she's down 3 attribute points total. She wasn't too pleased, but, you know, it is what it is. They won the fight, though, and they recovered all the stolen loot that the bandits had taken, and they made friends with one of the reformed bandits. They went back to town, and they are regarded as even more of heroes. They would have gotten +1 wealth, but Lego had very specifically told the mayor beforehand that they didn't need to pay them at all for doing this, so they didn't get any money for it. It's a bold choice, but, you know, it's something that I might have done in the past. It is a very dickish thing, of course, for the paladin to just announce that for the party without consulting them. Just like, yeah, we don't need any money. Money's for chumps. It's part of the reason paladins get real shit reputation. And that was where we ended off. So they still have multiple side quests. They still have to go hunt down the werewolf. They have to cure this guy of his werewolfism, lycanthropy. They have to investigate the goblins some more. And they have to go down further into the tomb, because now they have the amulet that lets them go down to the 2nd level. Whether or not they know that or put that together despite being told that, who knows? But that is the truth. So yeah, we still have a decent number of sessions out of the Delian Tomb. I am working, like I said last week, on sort of a homebrew adventure based around corrupted druids and rot. And I'm borrowing a bunch of stuff from Elden Ring. I'm definitely borrowing, like, the Scarlet Rot sort of stuff as part of it. And I envision the final boss battle of the whole adventure when they're deep in the under roots, trying to close this this wound in the earth that the primordial rot is trying to break through from. I'm envisioning the final boss battle to basically be the avatar of rot from Convergence. If you watch my videos on Convergence, I don't know if that's what it's called. I don't remember if it was called the Avatar of Rot or not, but it was something like that. Very cool boss battle, so I want to adapt that to Draw Steel for a big finale. But that's a long ways off at this rate. Very long. But, yeah, so that's where it is. So they are struggling to get through a battle without someone dying at this point. Mostly due to lack of tactical awareness and strong tactical sense. And also lack of combos, cooperative stuff. Like, they don't really come up with anything that combines. They're all working as individuals, which is not a good for Draw Steel. You really need to find some combos and work together, and, oh, my ability will key off of your ability in this way, and that's really powerful. They're not doing any of that. I don't know if they ever will. So they like Draw Steel a lot, because, you know, it hand waves a lot of stuff that they don't care for, and it's just combat, and it gets into it, and they fight, and blah, blah, blah. And it's simple in that way. But I don't know how they'll do in the long run at higher levels when combat gets a bit trickier and you have a lot of abilities and stuff. Like, I don't know. They actually did level up to 2 now, so they will have level 2 characters for next time. But that's just going to introduce more complications and so on and so forth. So we'll see. These fucking assholes just go walk in and out of here, and monsters can just walk in through these doors. Born in a barn. We shall see how it goes. But, you know, it's good enough. It's good enough. There is no perfect system for this group. There just isn't. No matter how many I try, no matter how many different approaches I take, OSR, new SR, you know, tactical combat, narrative combat, what, you know, doesn't matter. They will struggle with everything. So this, at least, it's all very codified for the most part, and it's just tactical combat. So I don't know. But okay, that's it. We went on long enough. I gotta play some Silk Song. We got Silk Song this week. More Dominions, of course, for the rest of time. And some Dark Deity 2. And then over on the Exploring series, all parts combined of Black Adatum, 7.5 hours long. For now, though, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.